Welcome back to the Omnibus Cafe, where we talk all things collected edition comic books. And today we're going to take a look at Thor by Matt Fraction, the Omnibus. This is the follow-up to the J. Michael Straczynski run, and it contains the event Fear itself. So grab your Mjolnir and a cup of coffee, and let's check out this book. All right, so let's dive into Thor by Matt Fraction. This is a thick omnibus, and I gotta say, I am a Joe Quesada sucker. If there's a Joe Quesada cover on an omnibus, I'm 100% of the time going to get that. I just really like his art. But let's see how thick this thing is. Take a look at the back. And before we dive into this, we're going to take the dust jacket off because we are not animals. All right, let's dive into this. And it's a thick, thick book. So let's take a look at the credits real quick. So this is almost entirely written by Matt Fraction. It starts off with a couple one-shots, and then we get the Secret Invasion tie-in, and then a Thor God-Size special, and then a free comic book day, and then a story written by Abnett and Lanning. And then finally, after about a third of this book, we get into the Matt Fraction run of this. Some really cool artists on this. We get Pasqual Ferry with Salvador Larroca, Olivier Coipel, who I think does a fantastic Thor, Stuart Immonen, who did Fear Itself. We get a little Andy Kubert, some Pepe Larraz, and some early Giuseppe Camuncoli, if I'm saying that right. But let's dive in. So this book starts off, like I said in the beginning here, it starts off with a couple one-shots that I didn't find that interesting. It wasn't really tied to what Thor's up to currently. These are kind of more looks in the past type stories. The art is fantastic, but I just didn't love the stories. I think there's 3 or 4 one-shots in here before we get into the meat of Matt Fraction's run. But again, really cool art. And if you like, more history on Asgard, this is kind of going to be up your alley, I think. But then we get into Secret Invasion tie-ins, and I think there are 3 issues of this. So if you remember my review of Thor by J. Michael Straczynski, we learned that Thor had recently returned to life. He had been gone from publishing for a really long time after the events of Ragnarok. And when he comes back, Asgard is hovering over Broxton, Oklahoma, instead of in space where it normally is. And Thor was largely doing kind of his own thing there, trying to resurrect old Asgardians. And in my review of Secret Invasion, Thor is pretty absent during that. He had returned pretty soon after the events, or before the events of Secret Invasion, except for a last-minute appearance in kind of that final battle in New York. And these issues explain why he's absent. So when the invasion starts, the Skrulls not only attack New York and, other major cities around the globe, they also attack Asgard, because the Skrulls need the Asgardians to be off-planet for their takeover to really be effective. But Donald Blake at the time, who's sharing time with Thor, is in the process of delivering a baby. So he relies on his old buddy, Beta Ray Bill, to defend Asgard as he takes care of this young mother. But as we near the end of this tie-in, Thor finally picks up his hammer and joins the fight and joins his brother Beta Ray Bill. All right, so on Thor issue 620.1, we finally in this omnibus get into, the real meat of the Matt Fraction stuff. And Fraction's run picks up kind of in the events, the aftermath of the Siege of Asgard, Norman Osborn's failed attempt to, hold on to his power. And we see that, after what the Sentry did, Asgard is largely in ruin at this point. And this first story that is called, it's a 6-issue arc called The World Eaters. And we meet this new character called Eric Solvang. And I believe he was the inspiration for Eric Selvig in the Thor movies. And he's trying to explain to the Asgardians that there's this vacuum in space, space and time, with Asgard being on Earth instead of in space where it ought to be. And he thinks that this space is supposed to be occupied, and that because it's not, something evil is coming. Something's coming for Asgard. Thor at this point, so if you haven't read Siege, this is going to be a bit of a spoiler, but Loki dies for like the 300th time in comics. Here's that Erik Selvon character. So Asgard's in ruin. Loki's dead. Odin is still in the land of the dead, or kind of in the space in between. I forget how they call it. And Thor just feels alone. He has no family. Asgard's not in its normal spot. And he's, maybe a wee bit depressed, I'd say. Balder at this point is the king, but he thinks that he's a terrible king for letting what happened during Siege happen. Quick editing note. But so we start off in Elfheim, where we meet this new race of characters that we had not seen before. These guys right here. And they are called the Anoethoxians. And they show up and they just start murdering elves left and right. And what we learn is they're basically looking for a new home. Wherever it is they came from is dying or was destroyed, and they're looking for a new home. And part of this, the reason that they are attacking the Nine Realms, is because of what the Erik Selvon character said. There's a missing component, and they feel like the Nine Realms are weak, with Asgard being on Earth. So these Anoethoxians are super powerful, very strong, kind of like this warrior race, just looking for a new home. So back on Asgard, Thor is contemplating bringing Loki back from the dead. Erik Selvon tries to get a meeting with Thor and kind of tell him his theories on this space-time absence and the coming disaster. Thor's not having it. He doesn't take it very seriously, and he basically kicks Erik Selvon out of Asgard. Well, Erik Selvon, being kind of this scientist-type character, picks up the phone and he calls Tony Stark. And Stark hears what he's saying, and he says, "Let me talk to Thor on your behalf. I think I can talk to him a little bit better." So we're back in space, and these Anoethoxians arrive at Nidavellir, and just like they did on Elfheim, they just lay waste to the people of Nidavellir. Meanwhile, Thor is out of Asgard. He's out in Paris looking for his brother Loki. But kind of like in the JMS run, he has to awaken the spirit of Loki in a human soul. And he ends up finding him, this soul of his brother, and he awakens him and brings Loki back to life. We go on to New York, and we see that some of the elves, or not elves, but the dwarfs of Nidavellir were able to escape Nidavellir during the Anoethoxians' brutal takeover of their place. And they are now in New York. And when they're in New York, things go a little bit crazy. They're looking for Thor because they think Thor will save them. And as these dwarves finally find Asgard in Broxton, Oklahoma, King Balder and Thor are asked for protection from this enemy. And Thor agrees, but Thor is also very desperate. Having just returned Loki, he also decides it's time, and I think we just passed it, it's time to awaken Odin from this. Odin's essentially dead, but he lives in this space in between, so he's not in Valhalla. He's basically in this eternal battle. And in the JMS run, Thor goes into the Thor sleep to meet with Odin, and Odin says, "No, this is your time. I'm not coming back. I like this eternal battle." So Odin's not terribly pleased that he was brought back to life and that Asgard's now on Earth. Loki had died. Asgard, it was destroyed by a mortal man, essentially, in Norman Osborn. But Odin is super smart, and he actually confirms Dr. Eric Solvang's theory that something wicked is coming because of the placement of Asgard. And if you remember, Thor kind of, didn't really care what this doctor was saying, but King Balder and Tyr decide they're going to take the battle to these Anothaxians in, I'm not going to say this right, Svartalheim. But they're easily defeated, and the enemy is one step closer to Asgard at this point. So we get this massive, bloody battle led by a recently returned and very angry Odin, who's also full of secrets. Thor remembers something that Eric said that could end this battle with the invaders, and this is the closeout of a really cool story. So the next story, Thor gets renumbered. He's back to a number 1, and it's still Matt Fraction. And so we get Mighty Thor number 1. And this 6-issue arc is called The Galactus Seed. And in this really awesome event, we see Silver Surfer, who is still heralding Galactus, and he feels that there's this force. He kind of senses something on Earth that he thinks could feed Galactus for a very long time, maybe forever. Back on Asgard, based on the events of the last story, the World Tree is injured and in a bad spot. And Thor and Sif are sent deep into the roots of the World Tree to see if they can resurrect it or help it. And what they find is they find this seed. Let me see if I can find a picture of it. We'll show you later on. But there's this seed or this egg that they find, and they bring it back up to Asgard with them. And when this seed or egg is revealed, we see that the Silver Surfer is in low Earth orbit, looking down on Earth pretty ominously. So we learn more about this seed and Odin's secrets and the fact that Odin had actually been seeking this treasure for many, many, many years. So the Silver Surfer arrives in Broxton, Oklahoma, where Asgard is, and he confronts Thor and Odin, and he asks Odin for the seed. He says this could save millions and billions of lives if we're able to feed Galactus and end his eternal hunger. But Odin is kind of a prick, as you probably know, and he says no. And Thor's not happy that, someone else, being Galactus and Silver Surfer, is challenging Asgard and his father. So we get this awesome battle between Thor and the Silver Surfer. The Surfer ends up retreating to go tell Galactus, like, hey, sorry, they're not going to give us this egg or this seed or whatever it is. And Asgard's weaponsmiths start making army to ready for a battle. Asgard versus Galactus. So in this battle, and I'll try to get there and show you some images of it. Oh, we get this pretty disappointing story with, what was her name? She married Bill in the JMS run. Kind of pretty disappointing closeout to her arc in this story. But anyways, Odin and Galactus, or Odin versus Galactus, Thor versus Silver Surfer, Asgardians in space. An absolutely awesome, beautifully drawn issue. High stakes. And in this battle, Odin makes his final attack on Galactus. And what happens is they actually fall to Earth. We see Thor hit Silver Surfer so hard that he actually flies from low Earth orbit to Mars. And Thor, standing over him, says this really cool thing. He says, I have no problem killing you on Mars. So back on Earth, where Galactus and Thor have fallen. A young Loki, and I don't know if we covered this, but when Loki comes back, he comes back as like a preteen, or he's very young. And he kind of gives these hints that he's still his mischievous old self. But what he's actually doing is he's trying to save Thor. This younger version of Loki is very attached to Thor. But anyways, we get this really awesome battle with Galactus on Earth and really awesome reactions from the people of Broxton, Oklahoma, including this pastor who ends up, and this is pretty funny, being Galactus's next herald. So this story closes out, and we get a little bit of closure on this. But this is one of the highlights of this run. Seeing Odin back, seeing Galactus and Silver Surfer fight Odin and Thor, just really cool stuff. And then we get this tie-in to Fear Itself, the event, and it's not necessarily terribly important. It just gives you a little history on Odin, and who we're going to learn is his brother. So this takes place all pretty far back in time, but we'll eventually get to Fear Itself. Now, Fear Itself is this really cool story, and really interesting that 2 events in a row kind of centered around Thor and centered around Asgard, just showing how popular the character was at the time. So we start this story off with Sin, who is the daughter of the Red Skull. And she's breaking into this old Nazi site in Antarctica where she finds this hammer right here, frozen in ice. And this hammer has writing on it that kind of makes it look almost like, I don't know if I can see it, there's some writing on it, and it almost looks like it's of Asgard, right? And we know that Thor's a big wielder of the hammer. But when she lifts it, she transforms and gains these new powers. Tony Stark has agreed to help, after the events of Siege, help rebuild Asgard using, his technology and his money. And so we get the existing Avengers at this time interacting with them. And Thor tells Odin, we're going to rebuild Asgard, and Stark's going to help us. And Odin is furious with his son, puts him in the ground and says, these are ants. They can't even take care of one another. And now you've invited them to rebuild our home. So Odin's just in a pissy mood, and he is for most of this book, and actually most of his existence. So Odin's not sold on the idea. He doesn't think Asgard should even be on Earth. So we get Sin traveling down to kind of the depths of the Pacific Ocean, looking for something that she's been looking for a long time. And what we find is that she finds this guy right here. And we find out that there's this prison at the bottom of the ocean, and it's been there for, hundreds of thousands of years. And it's where Odin kept his evil brother Kull, right here, who we're meeting for the first time. Odin is kind of oddly scared of Kull and the magic that's been released when he's released from this prison. And he actually orders Asgard to return to space, leaving Earth without gods and protection. So now that we're in Asgardian space, Odin tells of this war to come and kind of lets some of the secrets of Kull out for the first time. And we realize that Earth's going to be destroyed. Thor calls it a cowardice retreat and that they should be defending Earth. But Odin puts Thor in chains. On Earth, this magic that was released starts releasing these hammers. And I think we saw it back here. Maybe I passed. Yeah, so we see these hammers coming from space, all traveling towards Earth, where Kull has been released, and this, terrifying magic has been released with him. These hammers start crashing down, and we get these new weapons with mysterious powers, and whoever picks them up and wields them gets these powers. And one of the first people that we see get these powers is Juggernaut, who's in prison on the raft. Actually, they allow him to work out with these big machines. This is really cool. But this hammer falls in. He ends up picking it up and getting these powers kind of derived from fear and related to this new character, Kull. The next hammer that falls in Brazil, where Hulk's hanging out with his hot Red Hulk wife. I think they're married. And he picks it up and is transformed as well. We get South Africa. We see Titania get a hammer. In the Pacific Ocean, we see this Atlantean, I forget whose name it was, get a hammer. And the final person that gets a hammer is Ben Grimm, and you'll see him right here. And again, they kind of transform the character into this evil version of themselves. So Earth is in absolute chaos. These characters are going around destroying things, killing people, and the Avengers are, at this point, stretched really thin. The young and, again, seemingly reformed Loki breaks Thor out of his cell. And we meet the final bearer of that hammer, which again is Ben Grimm. And we might have passed it here. Odin learns that Thor was broken out of prison, and he allows his defiant son to return to Earth so that he can die with the rest of them. And then back on Earth, we see the first Avenger falling, and that is Bucky Barnes, who at this time was Captain America. So as we go on, we learn that Kull kind of feeds off of fear. The more fear there is surrounding him, the more power he gets and the more powerful these hammer bearers, which are called the Worthy, get. And we get this really awesome moment where Steve, for the first time since being, back alive or reborn, puts on his suit. So Stark makes his way towards Asgard, and he's going to start pleading with Odin to allow him to make Stark weaponry on Asgard using Asgardian magic. And at this point, Thor flies out and makes his first appearance to Kull, the god of fear. So while Odin allows Stark to make these weapons, he's making basically Stark weapons for the Avengers using Asgardian magic. And it's a really cool moment. So at a certain point, we see a battle between Thor and Kull, and Thor's actually down. He's down and out. Kull defeated him. Earth is in bad shape. Fear is running rampant. And what we see is that Captain America actually brings this battered Thor to Odin's feet in Asgard. And in this just absolutely awesome moment, right here, Captain America kind of lays Thor at his feet and says, "You need to heal him. You need to make him powerful." And Odin says basically, "How dare you speak to me like that? I'm a god." And as he's kind of scolding Captain America, Cap says, "Save it. Heal Thor now so he can fight your war." And just awesome that Steve Rogers is not afraid of Odin. I absolutely love this moment in this story, and it gives me goosebumps every time. Odin's actually pretty fearful of losing Thor because he does, even though he's an absolute prick, he loves Thor. And he starts finally revealing some of these secrets. And he tells the Asgardians that Kull's actually my brother, and I imprisoned him because, he was pretty evil and blah, blah, blah. And that there's this, something was written, or there was a story told that only Thor can actually kill Kull. But if he does, Thor will die. So Iron Man's got his weapons ready, and we see the Avengers here get these really cool. Look at Wolverine in this Asgardian suit with, these aren't hot claws. Don't worry, it's not hot claws. But every Avenger gets these kind of mystical, magical weapons. And Captain America readies the city of Broxton, Oklahoma for this final battle. and actually in this really cool moment kind of creates a militia with, the gun-toting Oklahomans, and calls the event. We get this really cool moment where, kind of like in the movies, Captain America picks up Thor's hammer. Now I'm not a Captain American historian, so I don't know if this has been done before, but amazing moment here. He picks up the hammer, Avengers assemble, lightning strikes. So while the Avengers are taking on the worthy, or these hammer bearers, Thor takes on his uncle Kull. And as the people of Earth kind of rally behind the Avengers, their fear kind of subsides. And again, like I said earlier, Kull feeds off of fear. But when they find this bravery within them, which Captain America helped kind of bring out of them, it starts weakening Kull. And I don't want to give away the events of this, but will Thor kill Kull? Will it kill Thor? Who knows? So after this, we get a few issues of kind of fallout from this Fear Itself tie-in. And then from here on, I think there's 10 or so issues left that didn't really, there was really no, I don't want to say purpose, but no singular thread throughout here. Just some Thor stories. Asgard is back in space, and it kind of fell off from here. The middle chunk of this book to me was really good. But again, we finish off with a few standalone stories that have some really cool art. But that, my friends, is Thor by Matt Fraction. All right, so final thoughts on Thor by Matt Fraction Omnibus. This is not my favorite Thor run ever. I think it was not nearly as good as the JMS run, but he did some really interesting things. I think the start of this book is a little bit weak, and the end of this book is a little bit weak. But the middle third of this book is some fantastic Thor and fantastic comic book stuff. The story arc World Eaters was very fun. The Galactus seed was incredible. And the event Fear Itself, it was fun. It lacks a little oomph, I think. It doesn't really do anything. Nothing really happens at the end of it. There's no fallout. There's significant fallout, I think. But it's still a really fun event. And really cool to see how popular Thor is and was at the time, because two events back to back, two major crossover events, Norman Osborn's Siege of Asgard and Fear Itself, were Thor based, were Asgard based. So he was super popular around this time, still is today. But really cool stuff in the middle third of this book. Again, I didn't love the beginning of it, just some one-shots and an annual. And then after the events of Fear Itself, kind of fell off a little bit. But the middle third of this book is really fun stuff. Let me know down in the comments what you guys thought of Fraction's run on Thor. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks.
If you're looking for great deals on collected edition comics or manga, we recommend shopping at panelboundcomics.com. They offer free shipping on orders over $30, plus bundled discounts to help you save even more. And if you're shopping from Europe or the UK, comicsbugle.com offers free EU shipping and a rewards program for regular buyers. Don't forget to use our discount codes at checkout.